Flooding in northeastern New Jersey is both linked to climate change at the global scale and shaped by the unique characteristics and history of the region and its neighborhoods. Climate change means warmer ocean waters, creating conditions more favorable for coastal storms, which can produce significant storm surges like we saw during Hurricane Sandy in 2012. It also means a warmer atmosphere that can hold more water, like we saw in 2021, when the remnants of Hurricane Ida dumped almost a foot of rain across parts of the metro area. Newark had its wettest day on record, with about 8 inches of rain recorded at Newark Liberty International Airport. Arctic warming causes glaciers to melt and in turn causes sea level to rise. This eventually could lead to sunny day flooding or flooding from high tides when there's no rain in our lowest lying areas.
Looking at about 3 to 5 feet of sea level rise with a moderate emissions scenario by the end of the century, and even just in the short term, almost another foot and a half by the year 2050.
Closer to home, the natural flow pathways of water have been altered over time, giving water fewer places to go during storms. Much of our region was formerly wetlands, and these were filled, often with soil containing industrial aerotoxins, to create the sprawling metropolitan region we know today. The history of fill and industrial activity also contributed to a legacy of contamination in many of our coastal areas. Northeastern New Jersey's industry and building boom since the 19th century created vast economic growth, but also led to a loss of green space and more concrete surfaces. Green space can help absorb floodwater, while water runs off of water-resistant surfaces like concrete and asphalt. The paving over of areas, along with the rise in storm intensity and sea levels, have made the region vulnerable to flooding today. Another part of the challenge: most communities in our area have combined sewer systems that handle both storm and sewer water in the same pipes. In many cases, these pipes were built more than a century ago and were not designed to handle all the water that enters them today.
When you flush, it goes down into a pipe and gets redirected to the wastewater treatment plant where it's treated. The same thing happens with stormwater, so it gets collected through what we have as catch basins. That also goes into the same kind of system. When there's too much stormwater due to an event like Sandy or Ida or Henri, the system gets overwhelmed. What do I mean by that? I mean that it literally is too much water, too much material to actually go into the wastewater treatment plant. So the way that it was designed in the early 1900s was to redirect the source of that water into what's known as an outfall. And the outfall just releases it into a waterway.
These releases can have environmental impacts to our waterways. The combined systems also all too frequently back up into basements and streets during storms. This happens when the sewers are overwhelmed with water or when trash clogs catch basins and water builds up in the street and can have negative human health consequences. As sea levels rise, so does groundwater. This could make flooding even worse by seeping into basements or leaking into our drainage systems. Addressing these issues and building resilient communities will require a team effort.
The crisis of climate change that is before us is something that no one entity, organization, individual can work on alone.
It's also important to look out for each other during any risky situation.
Resilience is as much about individual actions as it is about working together and building our community social life, so that if there's an extreme heat wave or a number of days that are high heat days, for example, one resilience action that an individual can take is calling and checking on their neighbor, their elderly neighbor who maybe has limited mobility issues, or folks in apartments who don't have air conditioning. That's part of what it takes to build community resilience as well.
Visit the Resilient Northeastern New Jersey Project website to learn more about flood risk and the program's goals.